Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master, tell me, is that sea monster that caused the tide of beasts dead, under the night? Chinger asked softly while sitting on the treetops. Have no idea. Shaking his head, Yu Ziyu was not sure, however, for a moment, as if he thought of something. Yu Ziyu also smiled and analyzed. If the nuclear weapon did not kill him immediately, then if he wants to kill it, he will difficult. Disaster, tilting his head, Chinger also had a look of doubt on his face. Yes, difficult. Nodding, Yu Ziyu raised his gaze to the sky and said calmly, the most terrifying thing about nuclear weapons is not the power of the explosion, but the radiation. But now we are in the era of great evolution, and everything is evolving every moment. Speaking of this, Yu Ziyu also asked with interest, tell me, what would happen if some creatures evolved the ability to resist radiation? Well. Stunned and speechless, the corners of Chinger's mouth couldn't help but twitch. If that were the case, it would be great fun. At this time, Yu Ziyu's eyes couldn't stop flickering. What he said to Chinger was not something he said casually, it was an idea that had long been buried in his mind. Evolving the ability to resist radiation is a fantasy, but in fact, there are traces to follow, just like now. If a person is bitten by a poisonous snake and survives it for a short period of time, then he may evolve the ability to resist poison. Nuclear radiation is scary, but it is no different from snake venom. However, this kind of risk is too great, but few extraordinary creatures dare to pat their chests and guarantee that they will not die if they are hit by a nuclear weapon. What's even more helpless is that most of the extraordinary creatures who have just opened their intelligence have no knowledge of nuclear weapons or even the human race. Otherwise, we would not have seen something like a massacre happen easily. After all, compared to the lives of those human beings, Yu Ziyu still believes that most extraordinary creatures care more about themselves and will not touch their brows easily. Taking a deep breath, Yu Ziyu no longer struggled with this topic. Rather than awakening the ability to resist radiation, Yu Ziyu thought it would be better to just hide on the ground. Thinking like this, Yu Ziyu felt heavy again. If you look carefully, you can see that his body has sunk another 4 or 5 meters into the earth. It seems that within a few days, I will be able to control the body and sink completely into the ground. He smiled. Yu Ziyu was also somewhat satisfied. For him, there was no better news than this. Being able to sink into the earth meant that he had found a more suitable way to hide himself than thick fog. Moreover, Yu Ziyu he also discovered that even if part of his body sank into the earth, it would not hinder his breathing. The earth and him were like water melting together. If there is any shortcoming, it is that he has not mastered this skill skillfully. A force, compared with the tree trunks exposed outside the earth, his roots are too thick. Every time he sinks, there are countless roots sinking, and at this moment, a suspicious sound sounded in his ears. A voice sounded from the side, Master, if your body completely sinks into the earth, what will you do? Forehead. In the rare silence, Yu Ziyu was also stunned. He didn't think too much about it, however, for a moment, after looking at the mutated beasts such as the bull demon and 9 tails who were still learning not far away, Yu Ziyu's eyes suddenly lit up and he responded. Let's build our own underground kingdom. As he said that, Yu Ziyu also showed excitement. Yes, a kingdom hidden deep in the earth. Underground kingdom. After murmuring, Chinger's eyes lit up. He didn't expect his master to have such ambitions. However, the kingdom is the inevitable choice of the master. With the master's body now covered in treasures, it would be difficult to find a place of his own among humans and mutant wild monsters. In this way, creating a force that is unique to you is the best choice. Thinking of this, Chinger also added. Master, if you really want to build a kingdom and conquer mutant wild monsters, it is essential. Moreover, I suggest that you can tame a group of mutant rats. With the terrifying number and work efficiency of the mutated rat swarm, if they can be guided, they can build an underground city deep underground in a short period of time that is no less than that of humans. Nodding, Yu Ziyu also agreed. Indeed, the mutant rat swarm is a force worth conquering. In addition to the mutant rat swarm, you can also raise a nest of mutant bees in his treetop. With the time around him, the aura he exudes is enough to catalyze a nest of mutated bees to a good level in a short time. When necessary, he can also use them as evolutionary points to harvest them. What is worth mentioning here is that as he continues to become stronger, his body even in winter. The land where the land is located is full of grass. Moreover, there is a spiritual energy that is constantly overflowing. It should be the wood attribute spiritual energy. After the body is purified, the little spiritual energy that overflows is enough to nourish most mutant creatures. Although there is no life essence, it is so powerful, but the good thing is that it is long-lasting and stable. For his life essence, 3 drops a day is the limit. 1 drop falls on the lakeside and breeds the spiritual lake. The other drop is given to the 9 tails, which is eaten by mutated beasts such as the bull demon. And a drop is reserved for emergencies. As for more, it is not that Yu Ziyu is stingy, but that the essence of life is related to his own origin. If too much, it will damage himself. 3 drops a day like this can actually make up for it. Thinking of this, the ideas in Yu Ziyu's mind became clearer and clearer, and the field of vision continued to increase. The foggy mountain was very vast. If one did not care about the strength of the mutant beasts, he should be able to find a good population of mutant beasts. Moreover, Yu Ziyu's current thoughts: it's very simple, find a good mutant beast population, cultivate it first, and test the water. If it is feasible, then his follow-up plan can also be carried out gradually. At this time, looking at Yu Ziyu's movements, Qing'er also covered his mouth and said softly, "Laugh, searching is indeed one way, but compared to searching, the easier way is to attract these little guys to come by themselves, right?" Thinking of this, Qing'er also took out a wild flower from nowhere, smiled, and said he jumped down from the treetop and came to the ground not far from Yu Ziyu's body, and slowly plunged into the ground. "Master, how about using this open space as my garden from now on?" "Garden?" After being stunned for a moment, Yu Ziyu also said in astonishment. "Yes, a garden." Nodding, Qing'er opened his hands and began to spin as if dancing on the spot. "I think there are all kinds of spiritual flowers planted here." Speaking of this, Qing'er reminded again. "Master, I'm afraid you've missed it. Your body is just a plant, and now you have reached the 2nd level of extraordinary achievement. As a terrifying plant that mutates, even a wisp of wood attribute spiritual energy that you inadvertently emit is enough to nourish a land and turn it into spiritual soil. In this way, the area around your body is an excellent place to plant spiritual flowers and spiritual grasses. And with the spiritual flowers and spiritual grass, I believe that insects, butterflies and even bees will come one after another." Covering her mouth and laughing softly, Qing'er also showed a look of expectation. "Flowers, grass, bees, butterflies, it must be beautiful." To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Faloo. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is that so? Listening to Qing'er's words, Yu Ziyu rarely felt suspicious. The first level of transcendence is a leap in life, and it is also a transformation of the soul. It is not difficult to say that it is difficult. For someone like Yu Ziyu who has an evolutionary point, he can work steadily and make a breakthrough directly. It can be said that it is not difficult, but for ordinary mutated creatures, it is as difficult as climbing to the sky, because, until now, the first-level extraordinary beasts have not spread to disasters. The appearance of every extraordinary first-level mutated beast is enough to it caused a huge sensation among humans. In this way, when he heard that Qing'er had found an opportunity for a breakthrough and was very likely to directly break through to the first level of extraordinary, how could Yu Ziyu not feel suspicious? It seems that he saw Yu Ziyu's suspicion. Qing'er he also smiled and explained. "Master, do you still remember the silver centipede I mentioned to you last time?" "Naturally, I remember that he should be the first extraordinary 2nd-level creature discovered in the federal interior." Speaking of this, Yu Ziyu also remembered the urge to fight him. However, now it seems that if this silver centipede appears in front of him, it will only take a few whips. The difference in strength is really too big. Now Yu Ziyu is already a full-fledged monster, with a peak spiritual power of nearly 300,000. Hundreds of branches are as bright as starlight. If nothing goes wrong, he can start the next round of strengthening. As for his 9, the roots of the ophon tree are still absorbing the spiritual power of the underground square. They are evolving in a more terrifying direction every moment. Until now, Yu Ziyu did not dare to rush the 9 roots of the tree. Even if he lifts it slightly, they all have the tendency to cause major earthquakes. The earth shakes, the mountains shake, animals gallop, and birds spread their wings. For a moment, most of the foggy mountains will shake, and this is Yu Ziyu now, a person who even himself is a little scared. Monster, I'm afraid that one day when I fall asleep, if I take a nap, the foggy mountains will be overturned by it. At this time, Qing'er didn't pay attention to Yu Ziyu's strange look, but continued. As early as a month ago, the silver centipede was captured by humans, and after half a month of discussions at dozens of spiritual research institutes, the silver centipede also had a proper disposal plan. Proper disposal plan? Couldn't it be those, that with a strange look on his face, Yu Ziyu also had some guesses. It is in line with the master's understanding of human beings. It is difficult for this silver centipede to die now. Every day, hundreds of experimenters will draw its blood, or take parts of its body for research. There is even an institute engaged in brain research. S top secret laboratory has repeatedly worked hard to apply for cutting the brain of the silver centipede. Forehead. Startled slightly, Yu Ziyu's branches and leaves couldn't stop shaking. This moment strengthened Yu Ziyu's determination. If it is really discovered by humans, the fish will die and the net will be broken. It is impossible to capture them alive, and it is impossible to capture them alive even if they are beaten to death. Yu Ziyu still has this bit of confidence. Moreover, he is more confident. If he is really pushed into a hurry, it will definitely be the human being who will regret it. Thinking like this, Yu Ziyu's main tree roots seemed to be roaring, and there was another indescribable roar. At this time, if you look closely at his main tree root, which is 1,000 meters deep, you will be shocked to find that he actually has the embryonic form of a dragon. Yes, dragon, the end is like a dragon's head, roaring and roaring. However, as it roared like this, its entire body surged deeper into the earth. For a moment, it seemed like I was tired. Hu, ho. Hu. In its rapid breathing, countless spiritual powers continued to pour into its mouth. At the same time, Yu Ziyu also felt a stronger force, centered on the main tree root, and continued to spread to other parts of the tree. When I master the tree roots and completely transform into a dragon, I won't be afraid of even the entire human race. With a sneer in his heart, Yu Ziyu became more confident, and this is the terrifying ability that Yu Ziyu spent most of his evolution points in the past 10 days and a half. With Dragon, LV1, the tree root transforms into a dragon, which is an extremely accomplished achievement. It greatly improves the absorption power of the main tree root, so that it can truly swallow everything and everything, until it finally takes root in the deepest part of the planet, swallowing the entire planet. It is as nourishment. This is a very scary ability, really scary. However, if you want to grow to the extreme, it is more difficult than reaching the sky. Now, Yu Ziyu has spent thousands of evolution points, but it has only accelerated his growth a little. According to Yu Ziyu's guess, if the main tree root is to completely transform into a dragon and use the entire planet as nutrients, without an evolutionary point, it is estimated that it will not be possible for tens of thousands of years. However, in 10,000 years, if that time comes, if Yu Ziyu does not die, he may become the overlord of one party. Therefore, this ability is more of a backup. Yes, backhand. If the main tree root can really penetrate deep into the planet, in the future, even if someone is stronger than Yu Ziyu, they will not dare to rashly start a war with Yu Ziyu unless he has the consciousness to die with this planet. And this is the rogue part of Yu Ziyu. If you can't run away, then threaten, severely threaten. It's best not to put your idea on his head, otherwise it won't be as simple as 1 or 2 deaths. Just like now, although Yu Ziyu's main tree roots have not yet penetrated deep into the planet, they are already able to stir up the earth. Just like what Yu Ziyu was worried about before, she was afraid that a nap would overturn the foggy mountain, and that is not a lie, but an ironclad fact. While Yu Ziyu was thinking about this, Qing'er on the side also continued. Master, I am now in the genetic laboratory. It is not difficult to get close to the silver centipede. So, you mean? Nodding, Qing'er also said bluntly, my breakthrough opportunity lies with that silver centipede. At this point, Qing'er suddenly pursed his lips and said frankly. My body is a ghost soul. If I want to break through, I should start with the soul. If necessary, I may even have to devour the soul. Is that so? Sighing, Yu Ziyu also understood Qing'er's plan. he probably wanted to swallow the soul of the silver centipede. A second-level extraordinary soul like him must be powerful, moreover, because it is a newborn spiritual intelligence. He cannot. It's tricky, of course. Yu Ziyu doesn't really want Qing'er to do this. After all, fighting for souls is too dangerous. If you are not careful, you may lose yourself, but, does Qing'er have other options? As a heterogeneous person, as a ghost, its mere existence is difficult to be tolerated by God. If you want to become stronger, it will naturally be difficult. Step by step. Fade.lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection. Chapter 89. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After taking a deep look at Qing'er, Yu Ziyu didn't say much. Compared to the attraction of the extraordinary first level, the rest may be insignificant. At this time, Qing'er seemed to be aware of Yu Ziyu's worries, and Qing'er also smiled freely. Master, don't worry, I'll be fine. As he said this, Qing'er also pursed his lips and said confidently. Now that the silver centipede has been tortured by humans, it has lost its temper and even its spirit is depressed. If I take action, I will definitely catch it. That's good. Speaking like this, Yu Ziyu sprinkled another drop of very rich life essence. In response, Qing'er smiled and put the life essence into her mouth. She did not know how to refuse her master's concern, and, more importantly, as she approaches a breakthrough, she also needs some strength, and the master's life essence is the best spiritual fluid. Call. Taking a deep breath, Yu Ziyu also let go of her worries about Qing'er. He turned his attention to the canyon not far away, looking at the mutated beasts that looked like hills, lying on the ground in an orderly manner, and looking like spiritless beasts. Yu Ziyu seemed to realize something, and suddenly smiled. Qing'er, shouldn't I confine these guys in the canyon? Listening to Yu Ziyu's inquiry, Qing'er glanced at the canyon, as if he had realized something, and said with a smile. Beasts, after all, they drink blood with mushroom hair. Even if they evolve, their true habits are still difficult to change, and the most important thing is that they still long for fighting in their bones. Really? Nodding, Yu Ziyu suddenly focused his eyes, and saw in a corner not far away, the flat-headed brother bared his teeth and kept sending provocative signals to the mutant beasts. However, due to the existence of Yu Ziyu, none of the mutant beasts paid attention to it. Even the 9-tailed bull demon and others selectively ignored his existence. In fact, the necessary battle should be very good for them. Thinking like this, Yu Ziyu's voice with a hint of playfulness also appeared in Emperor Crocodile's mind. If you are willing, go and educate Brother Flathead. By the way, I also want to see your methods. Yes, my lord. Suddenly, a voice emerged in Yu Ziyu's heart, but what was surprising was that this voice was very cold, and it also had a hint of evil aura. Then. Roar. A roar seemed to come from ancient times. The entire Lingtan and even Beiyu Canyon were shocked. Looking up, the entire Lingtan water is a slow whirlpool, pulling out a very huge whirlpool. Step, step, step. Along with the very heavy footsteps, the entire canyon couldn't help but shake. At this time, if you look up, you will be surprised to find a very huge figure rising from the surging whirlpool in the Lingtan. It is more than 20 meters tall and has a huge mouth that is more than 2 meters long. Rows and rows of hundreds of teeth were exposed in the air. Looking from a distance, it looks a bit cold. Oh my god, what kind of madness is the fourth brother? Looking at the huge crocodile that suddenly emerged from the Lingtan lake with evil aura, Qing Fan also let out a strange scream. As for the fourth brother in his mouth, it was naturally the Emperor Crocodile. He could see how much Yu Ziyu valued the 4 beasts. Then, he was so thick-skinned that he directly called him fourth brother Emperor Crocodile and sister Red Fox. Forehead. She was not surprised by Qing Fan's title, but unfortunately, she was not as shameless as Qing Fan. However, one thing is for sure, she seemed to be reluctant to leave here. Although she didn't work as hard as Qing Fan, she still did her due diligence. Occasionally, he takes the initiative to take care of Kyubi's hair and takes good care of her. As for the other mutated beasts, she had to admit that she was a little scared. Among them, the most feared one is the Emperor Crocodile. Not only does it look ferocious, but it also has an innate evil aura. Just looking at it makes one's heart tremble. At this time, Leng Feng also walked over from the side, took a deep look at the Emperor Crocodile walking out of the Lingtan, and gasped. Emperor Crocodile, this is probably about to take action. Take action? He glanced at the fourth brother suspiciously, and then at a guy with a flat head not far away whose hair was already standing on end. He also understood clearly, nodded and said, "Hee, fourth brother is going to teach brother Flathead how to behave." Speaking like this, Ching Fan couldn't help but reveal a playful smile on his face. Hee, brother Flathead is having a good time now. To be honest, brother Flathead, this guy is really not someone who can cause trouble. On weekdays, look, when it glanced at it, it almost rushed over, bared its teeth, and then glared back fiercely. You can imagine how bad-tempered this guy is, and now. With a smile, Ching Fan put his hands around his thighs. Thick arms, happily enjoying this battle. At this moment, brother Flathead seemed to have noticed what Emperor Crocodile meant. Not only was he not afraid, but he even took a few steps forward excitedly. Not only does it dare to cause trouble, it is not afraid of it. If it were a sacred tree, it might be really afraid of it, but if it were an emperor crocodile. Roar! Its sharp claws rubbed against the ground, and its 3 to 4 meter long body was slowly tightening. Snort! There was a faint cold snort, and the entire void was shaken. Immediately afterwards, the emperor crocodile, which had already stepped onto the shore, suddenly raised its head. Boom! The inexplicable sound suddenly shook the air. Suddenly, a circle of air waves visible to the naked eye rushed towards brother Flathead. Sonic shock. Crocodilus has a wide range of vocalizations. While using these sounds to define its territory and attract the opposite sex, it can also use these sounds to vibrate the air and form substantial sound waves, which are the legendary sonic attacks. Boom! As the air wave rolled up, brother Flathead didn't even have time to react, and he was already blown away. At the same time. Jab pull, jab pull. Like cutting with a sharp blade, invisible attacks fell on brother Flathead one after another. Looking from a distance, you can see that the hair of the flat-headed brother is constantly being cut off. However, relying on its very thick fur, it has not seen any blood yet. TSK, fourth brother has always been a ruthless person and doesn't talk much. Why did he hold back today? Looking at the flat-headed brother who kept flying in the air without leaving any scars, Ching Fan couldn't help but complain. You are stupid. The ferocity of Emperor Crocodile must be towards its prey, but it will still be more polite to its companions like brother Flathead. Pouting her lips, Qian couldn't help but retort. She had seen the predator of Emperor Crocodile more than once. Almost no prey could withstand such a fierce and terrifying attack. Even with the instructions of the sacred tree, be sure to bring them back to the canyon to eat. His prey has always been the most miserable. Almost all of them died within a few minutes of being brought back to the canyon. One can imagine how serious the injury was, but at this time, listening to Qian's voice, Ching Fan touched his nose and said awkwardly, "Yes, they are companions after all." To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Faloo. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, the flat-headed brother tumbling in the air suddenly shook his body. Roar! With a roar, his whole body fell back to the ground. Immediately afterwards, his body tightened again, a little, until, but at this moment, as if he noticed something, Yu Ziyu suddenly focused his eyes. This is, looking up, the silver hair of the flat-headed brother was actually filled with strands of silver-white electric light. Stab pull. The arc flashed and suddenly cut through the air, drawing out silver lines like spider webs, but after a moment, it suddenly disappeared again. Lightning, with a touch of astonishment, Yu Ziyu was also a little confused. I haven't looked at these guys for a long time, but they actually have such a method? Thinking like this, Yu Ziyu's eyes also condensed slightly. A series of messages were printed in a moment. Yu Ziyu's eyes. Race, mutated honey badger, level, entering the peak of level 7, Adel talent, thunder fury. When the flat-headed brother falls into a rage, he will eject silver-white lightning from his body to cover his whole body. These lightnings can activate his body, thus greatly speeding up his speed and greatly improving his defense ability. A very good fighting talent, born for fighting. Seeing this, Yu Ziyu also withdrew his gaze. Is this the awakening of elements? No, it shouldn't be. It's obvious that these silver-white lightnings erupted from Brother Flathead's body. It's more like his body has mutated again and can surge with electric light like an electric eel. Moreover, it is confirmed that it is as stated in the information, when Brother Flathead sprayed thin silver electric light, its aura was greatly improved, and it was obviously more than a little stronger. Roar. With a roar, the figure of the flat-headed brother disappeared instantly. At such a speed, ordinary people would not even have time to react. And a strong guy like Ching Fan only saw a flash of silver lightning in the air. Passed away. Damn, is this a flat-headed brother? That with the disbelief in his voice, Ching Fan couldn't help but doubt his life. However, Ching Fan couldn't help but feel lucky now. Fortunately, when he broke through to the 7th level a while ago, he didn't go to Brother Ping Tu for advice, otherwise he would I don't even know how he died, but at this time, from a distance, Emperor Crocodile narrowed his eyes slightly, revealing a trace of human interest. Bang, his footsteps shook, and his entire body rushed out. Next moment. Boom. 2 figures, one big and one small, had already been pulled out. At the same time, the flat-headed brother stretched out his sharp claws, while the Emperor Crocodile waved his tail. Bang, tong, bright silver-white electric light splashed out, and the hair on the flathead brother's hair kept standing up. The terrifying power from the giant tail made his body unable to bear it, and almost collapsed. However, it was still okay, we can still fight. He gritted his teeth, his eyes were filled with blood, and even more intense electric light was pouring out. Swish, swish, swish. It was so fast that the naked eye could catch it, and it had completely exploded. Seen from a distance, it looks like several silver-white lightnings intertwining around the Emperor Crocodile, waiting and looking for opportunities. Gulu swallowed. Qianqin and others looked at the silver-white electric light that had covered dozens of meters in the battlefield. They opened their mouths wide and were filled with shock. There was even a touch of unspeakable panic. How could it be so strong? That with an incredible voice, Leng Feng and Qianqin also looked at each other. Is this really an ordinary mutant beast? Or is it that the mutant beasts around the sacred tree are already qualitatively different from the outside world? At this time, Brother Flathead ignored everyone's thoughts. Only at the moment of actual action can it realize the terror of Emperor Crocodile. Under the unspeakable oppression, it just crouched on the spot without even turning its head. Brother Flathead was horrified to find that it had no chance to take action. Yes, there is no chance to take action. No matter which angle he attacks from, he is bound to be greeted by a thunderous strike from Emperor Crocodile, and this is inevitable. However, this is not surprising, just because the atavistic Emperor Crocodile never uses his brain to fight. It constantly pursues the glory of its bloodline and relies on instinct to fight. The keen perception allows it to detect all movements. And the crawling body is the moment it detects the movement and launches a fatal counterattack. Call. Holding his breath and concentrating, the flat-headed brother's eyes suddenly condensed. Stab pull. The silver-white, narrow claws wrapped in electric light tore through the air, and with a sharp sound of breaking through the air, they fiercely clawed at the neck of the crocodile. At this moment, as if he noticed something, Emperor Crocodile's eyes suddenly narrowed, the muscles pulse in an instant, the whole body was shaking uncontrollably, and then, the flat-headed brother felt a flash in front of his eyes, and a very thick tail had landed on its head. Boom, accompanied by a loud noise, violent airflow spread out in all directions. Click, click. The earth always screams at this moment, and then, without waiting for anyone to react, it cracks like a spider web in an instant. At the same time, among the dense dust, a figure that was deeply sunk into the earth appeared, with only the faint flash of electric light appearing. Glancing at the figure in the ground, Emperor Crocodile didn't say anything. Instead, he slowly turned around and slowly crawled toward the Lingtan with his 4 short, thick legs. However, at this time, everyone looked at this slow figure, but they were speechless. What just happened? That with her eyes widened, Qianqin couldn't help but ask. Have no idea. Shaking his head, Leng Feng's pupils had already shrunk to the point of a needle. Just as he felt his eyes flickering, Emperor Crocodile's tail had already landed on Brother Flathead's head. How is this possible? You know, at that time, Emperor Crocodile was facing Flathead. Brother, that is to say, Emperor Crocodile had to complete a nearly 180-degree turn in an instant, and it had to wave its tail at the same time to do it, and this is just possible. Because this is only limited to theory. In fact, it is almost impossible for any living thing to be able to do it. At this time, Qing Fan from far away also sighed deeply. As a human who has awakened and strengthened his talent, he understands a little bit. No wonder, some people call the fourth brother a muscular crocodile. Smiling, Qing Fan finally understood the most terrifying thing about fourth brother. All the muscles in his body moved in an instant, and the whole body turned into a spring, and maintaining this state, fourth brother's body enough to make any response in an instant. Yes, any response, even if someone attacks him head-on. He can turn around in an instant and swing out his tail fiercely, and this is how terrifying the fourth brother is. No wonder the second brother Nyo Mo when mentioning the fourth brother, there will be a hint of hidden fear in the depths of his eyes. This kind of fighting instinct can almost be called RT_Fei.Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection,